Hey, it's Frank here with Frank's DIY and Homeowner Help, and today we're going to do some plumbing. We're going to install some PEX plumbing and connect it from inside the house to outside. It's going to be an exterior garden hose type job where we're going to connect into an existing line. We're going to drill through some concrete, some brick, and connect it all up to give us some outside water for the spring. So thanks for joining me. Hope you learned something. Okay, so I've lived in this house for about 6 months. It's winter in central Ontario, Canada. So first thing I did was installed this valve before things got too cold. That valve right there. So this line right here is the line that goes from the main house feed to the exterior. And it ends up going out into the garage that way. And there was no cutoff, no shutoff on this line. And here we get down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. That's about minus 22 Fahrenheit. And if you don't install a cutoff and drain all the water on this side of the line, then there's a good chance the pipe will freeze and could burst and give you some major flooding. It's happened to me before. Not with PEX, but it has happened to me before with copper. So I installed that line, drained out, I installed that valve, drained out this part of the line, and now I'm going to put a T right about here and run another line, which will again be an exterior line out to the side of the house, because that line right there heads out to my garage, which only gives me water access on one side of the house, and I need it at the back of the house. So this is how this works. You got the main, I'll head over here and I'll show you. This is the main line coming into the cottage right here. So there's the main line coming in from the city, from the basement floor, and it comes up here. And first thing you do is you bypass it. You bypass the main line with this line, which is your exterior water, with the shutoff valve. And the reason why you bypass this line is that this line comes up and ends up going into this water treatment system, water softener. I've got the Rain Soft system, which I love. It's amazing. And so you don't want to be using treated water for your exterior water, right? It's kind of a waste. So you bypass it before it even gets into the system, and it goes out to the exterior. So quick spiel about PEX, and I do not have anything invested in PEX. I don't get paid to say this or anything like that, but for 30 years I used copper. So I did my own brazing, treating of copper. I did an entire cottage with copper. And when I built the new cottage, my builder strongly suggested we use PEX. And I knew nothing about it, but I was afraid of the unknown. So he went ahead and did it with PEX, and I love it. I will never go back. I have never had a leak installing a PEX line. There, I just jinxed myself. But I've done my entire cottage with a bunch of stuff at home. This entire house is all PEX, and never had a problem with it. It's easy, it's inexpensive, and it's much more forgiving than copper is. So if you're trying to decide, if you got a little job to do and you have copper in your house, that's still no problem. You can buy one of these shark bite connectors that goes from copper to PEX, which is plastic, ABS type of stuff. And I don't know if it's ABS or not, but it's plastic. And it makes life really, really easy as far as your plumbing goes. Okay, so here's most of what we're going to use to do this. So to get into PEX, you do have to make a bit of an investment. But compared to what you're investing all the time, renewing with copper, it's nothing. So you've got this crimp tool, two different sizes. One is 3/4 inch and one is a 1/2 inch. And the diameters that we're mentioning are outside pipe diameters. So this is your 1/2 inch pipe, and 1/2 inch refers to the outside. So I've got these corner pieces that I might use just to help hold bends if I need to. Got these brackets to secure the pipe to studs. Got one crimp ring that I will need, and I've got a shark bite T cutting tools, cutting knife, really easy to use. The outside spigot, which again goes to your 1/2 inch PEX pipe there. That is where you're going to use the ring. You're going to use this this crimp to affix the pipe to. I'm going to use two Tapcon concrete screws. Going to need a concrete drill, probably measuring tape, maybe not even, and that's about it. So again, when you compare this to copper, you would have maybe, you know, your propane torch in the place of your wrench. You're going to have flux. You're going to have solder, And you have to keep buying that stuff. Now the one thing, you don't have to buy shark grip. These are very easy click and go pieces that seem to last forever. They don't leak at all if they're installed properly, and they're easy to install by your DIY guy. But you don't have to spend it. Like this is a little expensive. So this piece might cost up to, I've seen them for $9, I've seen them for $11, so they're not cheap. You don't have to buy those. You don't have to buy shark bites. You can buy these regular pieces that require these crimps on them, and they're a lot cheaper. You can buy the plastic, you can buy them in brass, whatever you want. So you can decide how much you spend on your product. They all work amazingly, and they should make this job easy. Famous last words. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into this pipe here, right about there. I'm going to install that T, and then I'm going to run the line along the bottom end of this ceiling, along those joists, and I'm going to come out right over here. So right beside those two exhaust pipes from my furnace. So I'm going to drill from the outside in, and then run the pipe in, insulate the hole, fasten the spigot to the outside, connect the T that I will have put in there, and that's the job. I mean, it shouldn't be much. Okay, so I'm going to make the first cut here, and the only cut really. And you're going to see just how easy this is. So I'm planning on cutting it right around here so that the T ends up, you know, somewhere close to flush with this. Again, it's pretty flexible, so you don't have to worry about it. That's the other beauty about this stuff, is it is very flexible. So here's the cutter. You can't get an easier operation than this. You literally make sure the pipe's empty of water, which this is because I drained it, and you just install it in, make a nice straight square cut. And that's step one. Step two, you take your shark bite piece. Again, it doesn't have to be a shark bite piece, and you just line it up, push it in. You hear a nice click, you hear it grab, and that is the first job. That's the first connection. What did it take? 20 seconds? It would be about 5 seconds if I wasn't yakking about it. But that's your first step. Easy. It's in there forever. Give it another squeeze if you want, but that's not going anywhere. Now we're going to make the hole outside, bring the pipe through, and connect it to there, and this job's done. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm expecting here. Here is where I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in right here. And the reason why I'm going in here is I want to go in where there is, I want to start the drill on a joint here so that I'm drilling through the mortar, I guess, whatever this stuff is called, instead of the brick, because it's a little softer and a little easier to start and get going, and it should be more than firm enough, of course. Now, exterior walls are supposed to be about 7.5 inches here. Even if this has an extra course, maybe it gets to 11 inches. So that's why I've got 12 inches of penetration on this bit. So the thing is, what I'm expecting here is that this goes out to a sill plate that's behind here on the inside. So I'll drill hopefully on a slight angle downward, just because I want to A, have the pipe draining that way, and B, because we're just a touch on the high side here, I want to come out right about where this pipe goes in. So, and this wall ends at a sill plate, which is wood, and that drill bit won't go through that wood. So hopefully it'll just go in about 7-8 inches, then it'll bottom out on the wood. Then I'll use this to drill through the wooden sill plate, just to give me a pilot hole, and then I'll cut the sill plate from the inside. Alright, let's see how she goes. So when you're drilling concrete, this is the drill that I elected to use. It's kind of a middle of the road hammer drill. It has a hammer setting here. You see how it's on hammer? You do need a hammer drill to drill through concrete. This is a concrete bit, or a stone bit for that matter. And this handle here will help me support it a little bit. One thing you want to do is make sure you're going in straight. You don't want to be too crooked anyway, because the further you go, the more off your hole is going to be on the inside. So I want this to be level, and then a slight angle downward so that I come out in a better shape down there. Let's see how it goes. Not a a bad idea to back out every now and then just to clear out some debris. If I'm drilling rock, I'll have a bucket of water here to cool the drill bit as I go. Being that I got all this wonderful Ontario snow, and for brick, it's not that big a deal. You don't really need to cool this thing down. So I'm only in about 3 inches there. That's the first course of brick. Okay, real nice penetration through the next one. Pretty close to the end there, about 6 inches now. Okay, that sounds like I'm through. Feels like I'm through. Reverse out. And go back forward. So see how the drill's getting caught there? You just flick on the reverse it out. Let's try and go forward again. See how see how it's getting caught? So it could be getting caught on something like a nail in that that sill plate there. So we'll try and go in easy a bit more with this, and then if we can't, we'll put the other drill bit in. Yeah, so it's clearly getting caught on something that isn't brick, right? So let's try the other drill bit. It turns out that my hole actually made it all the way through the sill plate. See it there? Just right beside that floor joist, which was exactly where I wanted it to go, where I planned it to go. It's close. If it were a 1/4 inch over, I'd have a problem. Have to re-drill it. But close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So now I've just got to connect the pipe to the spigot, run the pipe through there, connect it to the T that I made over there. Ooh, that's tight. Let me back it a little bit. Over there. Fasten all the hoses, spray the insulation, connect the spigot to the concrete, and she's done. Okay, so now I have to crimp the PEX tube, which is right here, to the spigot. And the way you do it is you insert one of these crimping rings onto the tube first, just slide it down, insert the spigot in, and then you crimp it down. It's just something I want to show you here first. When you crimp, you should always leave at least about 1/8 of an inch of whatever you're crimping, whether it's PEX or electrical cable or whatever, at least 1/8 of an inch showing. And I think if nothing else, the reason why you do that is because you see that the entire piece is crimped properly. If you had it like this, well, you wouldn't tell if it was a proper crimp or if it were just hanging on and about to snap off, okay? So whenever you do any kind of a crimp, even with electrical cables and electrical boxes, that type of thing, you always leave a little bit showing. So, and you can see here the two main barbs that are going to grab that are one right here. Actually, there's three, I guess. One here, which is about 1/4 inch away from where it's going to bottom out. The second one there, and the third one there. So all three of these are going to provide your seal. So here you go, you just put it on, you put it to your spot, and this is a bit of a trick to do. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's always better to plan out where you're going to do your crimping so that you have the best possible position. So I'm going to put this here. Hopefully you can see it with the camera here. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, it's all bottomed out. I'm leaving my 1/4 inch space. I'm going to put the tool on it just lightly, give one more check to see that I got a good amount of space on there. Now once you crimp this on, there's no uncrimping it. You got to cut that ring away, and that is a real pain, I know, because I've done that. So there's my space. I'll just make sure the ring doesn't move at all. I'll sit it into the bottom jaw first, and then just bring the top down on it. Okay, I'll move it out here where I get a bit more leverage. All looks good. Just give it a squeeze, open her up, And there you go. There's a good solid crimp. And that's not going to go anywhere. You can even turn this thing and it won't leak. So depending on what direction you want things going. So now we feed this in from the outside, connect it to that T, fasten it all up, and your job's done. Look at the tube fed through those sill plate there. And we're coming all the way around and ending up right at this T. Now if you look at it here, somebody's flushing the toilet. If you look at it here, it just barely, it makes it no problem. But what I don't like is the angle that it's coming in at. See how it's not a 90-degree angle? The only problem I've ever had with these shark bite pieces is the very first one I did on a toilet, and it was a very short run of pipe, and it wasn't perfectly perpendicular, right? So instead of trying to make this such a sharp angle here, I'm just going to add a little splice out here to make it a much more straight angle into that piece. It doesn't have to be a long one, but it'll actually show us how to do another joint, another splice from here to there. So we've got to put a splice onto this end here, and I've just found this piece of tube kicking around. It's the same size, same diameter, same everything, except for it's red, because when these started out, they were just all colored white, but now they make them in blue and red, so you know the hot and cold. Before, what they did was they would just basically put red tape on the hot water pipe. So anyway, this is not going to make a difference. It might look a little ghetto, but I don't mind. So here's the splice we're going to put on. You can see it's just barbed at both ends. Now all you do is you make sure you have a sleeve over the one end. Insert the splice, flip bottoms out, insert the other end. Actually, I could have inserted a ring on the other end first, but we'll do it the hard way. Put it on this side. Alright, now you crimp these two again so that they're all, you know, showing about an eighth, a quarter of an inch max, and it's done. So I'll grab my crimping tool, and the one pain you get the odd time is that these things tend to slide when you're working with them. See how that one slides? And it becomes a bit of a pain because you got to make sure that it's in the right spot when you apply the crimping force. So let's see how this one works out. I'll just try to do these ones sort of on the fly here, so that you can see it. You got to open the tool wide enough. There are other crimping tools that don't require you to use a wrench style tool like this. There are tools that are like guns, that are like drill guns. So I've got it on. It looks pretty good. I'm happy where it is right there. So I'm going to crimp it right there. Okay. So that sounded good, felt good, and it looks good. Put this next one on. So it might be a little trickier because it wants to slide around, but anyway, we'll see. It's almost like you need a third hand. And really that's the only close to complication that you get, is making these crimps. Alright. So that's the finished splice. Again, you don't want to splice when you don't have to, simply because every splice is turbulence, and every bit of turbulence is a loss of pressure. For this, it's such a short run, and it's outside water, which I got a ton of pressure in this house, so I'm not too worried about it. So now we'll connect this end to that T, and then we're done. So for connecting into these shark bite splices and such connectors, you just want to make sure you're nice and straight into it. So that looks like a really good angle. You get a really positive bottoming out when you push it in. You almost even hear or feel a click. There, that is solid. That should be there forever and a day. I'm going to drill the holes for the spigot using these Tapcon screws. I'm going to secure the spigot with these Tapcon screws. Now, there may be better fasteners. I'm not a huge fan of Tapcon, but it's what I got, so that's what I'm going to use. And basically you buy these things and it tells you on the box what size drill bit to use. So these are 3/16 screws, and this is the drill bit that came in that box. So you just have to drill at least a 1/4 inch deeper than the actual screw itself to give it room for debris, I figure. And make sure the screw doesn't bottom out, because the screw is just going to grab the concrete that's left behind out of the hole. So your diameters are totally critical in this. that is more than deep enough for these screws. Maybe just a little deeper. Let's see. Like my friend Harley says, you can go deeper. There we go. Okay, that's more than enough. Try this one. Okay, now before I put the screws in, I'm just going to spray, I'm going to pull this out again and spray foam insulate this. I'll push the tube as far as it can go and hopefully get foam coming out the inside, just so that it provides a little bit of insulation between here and the inside. Okay, so I'll get the tube going as deep as possible. Hopefully get this foam as deep as possible. Let's try it on this side. Well, doesn't want to go much further than that, so I'll spray from here and I'll spray from the inside as well as I can. There's not much room to work with on the inside, that's why I want to do it from here. And that's not working at all. There we go. Now it's working. So it looks like that's about as deep as I'm going to get. Going from here, it's definitely going in. Okay, that'll be it for here. Now I'll put the screws in and the outside work is done. I'll just finish them by hand because you don't want to strip them. They strip very easily, especially when you're in mortar as opposed to something solid like brick. So that's about all she needs. Just do a quick little finish by hand. Yep. And the outside is done. So now it's just a matter of putting some of these clamps up that you can see are pretty simple. You just take a hammer to that nail, hammer it up against the floor joists, and it's all secure. And we'll do a water test on it and test for leaks, do a leak test, and that's your job done. So I ran the leak test on the line. You can see I fastened it up to the floor joists. It's a nice run all the way out to that sill plate there. And you can see I did get a decent amount of spray foam. Okay, so leak test went fine. So here's the finished product, starting from the inside part of the outside wall. You can see put a couple of fasteners on there to hold it in place. There's where it goes up to the T. And the job is done. Leak free. Total time for this job I'd say could be less than an hour. It took me a little longer because of all the filming and stuff. But a couple quick disclaimers. This job is, I'm not claiming this job is according to any kind of building code or anything like that. It's up to you to figure out what your code is and whether or not you're doing the job right. So look into that if you want to or if you need to. That's always a good idea. Safety gear. Wear safety gear, because I don't, and I should. And I just keep forgetting. I worry more about the filming than about my own safety. So goggles, eye protection for the drilling, and even some rubber gloves, you know, would have prevented this when you're doing that spraying. So I'll have to wipe this off with mineral spirits now. And so overall, again, I love the PEX. I'm a big proponent of it. Having worked with copper all my life, I will never touch copper again in my life. This stuff is easy, and anybody can do it with a very little bit of practice. There's tons of good resources on YouTube to look up how to do PEX. There's a minimal investment compared to copper. It's still cheaper. This job cost me maybe on the high end 50 bucks. And it cost me that because I used the high-end shark bite fasteners and couplers, where you could use just the regular ones. In this house they use a lot of the plastic ones. Job could have been as cheap as like 9 or 10 bucks if you use the plastic ones. Just going to show you something else really quickly before I end up this video. I want to show you some good crimps and some bad crimps. Okay, this is an example of not a great crimp right here, and I'll show you why. You see how far that, first off, the tubing is from bottoming out. See how there's a gap there? That gap shouldn't be there. This tube should be right against that fitting. So this crimp is only grabbing onto, the sleeve is only grabbing onto the very end of that. Maybe one barb instead of 3, but you see it's still not leaking, and it's never going to leak. One other example of a bad one here that I'm going to show you just really quick is this one here. You see here, the sleeves are just too tight to the end of the pipe, and it doesn't allow you that 1/8 of an inch or so to make sure you've got the entire pipe covered with that sleeve. So just keep that in mind. Give yourself a bit of working room. All the rest of them look pretty good. This one is way too tight. See that? You need some space. You need to see the pipe coming out the other end of that crimp sleeve. And you don't right there. See? Even the one on the left isn't great. The one on the top is good. Perfect. Okay, so keep that in mind. Try to do it, and if you fail, just try again. And hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully I've been able to help you. And thanks for joining me at Frank's DIY and Homeownership Help.